Hey everyone, thank you for joining us once again. I'm Ari. With me, as always, is Foti, and we have a very, very special guest today, a restaurateur extraordinaire, I want to say. I have lots and lots of questions, so I want to really jump into this. But before we get to it, let me introduce Foti Stamos. Hi, Foti. How are you?
Yes, Ari, I'm doing very well and as excited as always. We just continue to keep pounding the pavement with great guests on our podcast. And with us, a good friend, but also, in my opinion, a very hardworking, creative restaurant entrepreneur. Let's bring our guest and we'll get to know a little bit more about him. Spiro Pappadopoulos. Spiros, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Spiro, it's very classic that a lot of our guests locally and also nationally have grown up in the restaurant industry by default, but also have, over the years, and myself included, I'm sure Ari included, our parents wanted to make sure that we went to school so that we wouldn't be in the restaurant industry. So, to pursue careers, but for some reason, we always circle back and we do what we know best. And it seems that the hospitality industry is where we do well, amongst other industries as well. But this is something that I think is important to understand, that we persevere in anything we do, but also at the same token, today, there's a lot of interesting individuals who are Greek that are running amazing concepts, including yourself. So Spiro, before we get going, can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how the journey began for you?
Sure. So I grew up in New England. So up until my parents lived in Lowell, moved to Pelham, New Hampshire when me and my sister were born. Grew up there until about second grade and came to Andover. During that whole time, my dad was working at digital equipment, but he always had a restaurant or something on the side, a pizzeria, a restaurant, a sandwich shop. He always had something like that going. So, during my really young years, I did spend some time with him there, basically. And then he kind of moved into his full-time career for a little while until about freshman year in high school when I was at Andover High. He opened a restaurant called Pasta Villaggio in downtown Andover. And that was my real first indoctrination into the industry. I was, it was a family business and I was working, whatever needed to get done, I was doing. So, I grew up in New England. Andover was, most of my years, and working at that restaurant at Andover was my real first taste and understanding as a semi-adult about what it meant.
Wow. Now, did you know at that point that this was something for you in the future, or did you just think, this is my dad's place and I got to do what I got to do? Was it one of those things?
Yeah. So, it's interesting because, what Foti said is really the truth. My parents didn't want me to get into the restaurant business. I think, it's a grind. It takes a toll on you personally if you allow it to. It can take a toll on your relationships, which is something that I think a lot of people in this business struggle with as well. So they didn't want me to. I was a good student. I ended up going to Boston College. My parents were pushing me to do things outside the industry. So I wouldn't say I knew at that time. But clearly there were things about it that kind of got ingrained in me at that time that led me down this path.
So, you mentioned earlier in our conversation, we double life. And I think we all lived that double life in school, where we were studying to pursue our studies for a specific career, while weekends at the family restaurant, holidays, nights, somebody calls out and you got to go fill in their spot. So, yeah. And it takes a toll. But I think that it also builds some stamina and some stability and some thick skin to actually take on bigger endeavors.
Yeah, I think for me, I've always had an independent spirit where I figured that, I can figure out how to take care of myself, and the restaurant business gave me the opportunity to not rely on someone else to, get me a promotion or figure out how to move through something, and or feel like I was being held back by anything other than myself. So I definitely embraced it for that reason as well.
That makes sense.
Nice. So you started with a family business in Andover, and
Mhm.
from that point on, you grew out of Andover. Can you walk us through
Yeah.
that timeline?
Yeah, so like I said, I went to Boston College, and lived in the city. I would come back on Thursdays to bartend and make some cash for college, and then go back to school. After college, I moved to Manhattan.
Ooh.
So I have a extended family there. My cousin Paul and his dad had built quite a little bit of a hospitality empire in Manhattan. So I ended up, sleeping on his couch and working on building a bakery on 86th Street. And as soon as the bakery opened, I decided that I didn't want to be in the bakery business because, bakers were calling me at 3 a.m. telling me they weren't coming in, and
Oh,
it
God.
just wasn't my jam. So my uncle, who had kind of backed me, was very gracious and allowed me to, hit the reset button on that. And from there, he had 35 plus food establishments in New York City.
Wow.
So at any given time, there were a couple that weren't doing so good because of management or whatever reason. So I kind of was like the cleaner to a certain extent. And, there was a restaurant on 58th between 6th and 7th that, was in a building he had control over and hadn't paid rent in a while, and they hadn't made any money in a while, et cetera. And he basically said, take the restaurant over. You can have 20% of anything it makes. And, so basically I did that and made it my home base. And from there, once that was going well, I ended up having the opportunity to take over another struggling place. This one was called the Times Square Deli on 43rd and Broadway, and did that there as well. And there was a little like ice cream. It's weird, but it was an ice cream bagel shop
Okay.
that was in a similar state. So I got, it's at one point, my mid 20s, I had those three places that I was kind of overseeing, having a lot of fun in New York City, making good money, saving money. And, at a certain point, I had to decide, okay, I'm not going to be a New Yorker now, and I'm going to stay here forever, or it's time for me to go back to the Boston area.
Mhm.
So, early 2000s, 2004, 2005, I ended up getting out of New York and coming back and opening up Evenfall in Bradford by the North Andover line, basically. So that was a whole new experience, and kind of unfolded with a lot of good things in my life. I met my wife there, and kind of really felt like I was on my own for the first time with my own restaurant and business. And my parents weren't involved, and my family, like I had in New York, wasn't involved. So there were some ups and downs. Definitely, there were some times where during the financial crisis, it was very stressful, and trying to figure out how we were going to like reinvent ourselves and survive. But all those struggles really were the most valuable things that ever happened, because they teach you how to handle tough times,
Yeah.
and the restaurant business isn't always the same. It's up and down, and there's seemingly, these days, it's like one crisis to another.
Right.
But if you've gone through that trials and tribulations, and like I always tell people, like, when you do this, there's nobody to turn to and hand a problem off to. Like, everybody's handing them to you, and you've got to handle it. So it's a much different feeling, like you
Sure.
have to look inside yourself and say, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to deal with it. I'm not going to panic. I'm not going to, act irrationally or pretend, or maybe even bury my head and pretend like there isn't a problem until it's something I can't solve. So
Well,
yeah, I've worked through that. And then unfortunately, my dad passed away really kind of suddenly. And the restaurant in Andover was sitting there. We had, I was an owner of it, but my sister and my dad had kind of taken care of that. So 2012, I ended up getting married and taking over Andover, moving on from Haverhill because it was a building that we had leased and we were close to the end of the lease there, and I was doing Andover. So we, took that over, and about 3 years later opened Sauce in one end of the building, which is a burger and wings place. And then 7 years ago opened up 15 Essex, which is a cocktail bar in downtown Andover as well. So the latest thing that's happened is a partnership with SRG, where I'm the CEO now. We opened a Sauce at TD Garden.
Oh, wow.
So in the Hub Hall and TD Garden. So that's kind of like where we're at today, and a little bit of a walkthrough how it all happens. Yeah.
That's super impressive. Listening to all this is you being in New York as a young, 20 something, and then coming back and then making a family, all while in the restaurant industry, is pretty impressive. It takes a special breed to do what
Ari,
you do.
What amazes me even more is, if you listen to Spiro, is that with all the struggles, the majority of operators would just throw in the towel and hang it up.
Oh yeah.
But from what Spiro is mentioning is it actually provided more fuel to continue to open up new concepts, which I'd like to discuss, which is going to lead up to the new concept that you just opened up, because being that you're Greek, and that Greek is still hot as far as restaurant concepts, and they're mainly in the metro areas of the different states. It's great to see what you're doing now outside of Boston, which is refreshing for us that live in the outskirts. Let's talk about this new concept that just developed.
Cool. Yeah. So for about 12 years, we had been operating a restaurant called Andolini's, which is a really popular Italian restaurant in downtown Andover. We, in the middle of the pandemic, weren't allowed to use inside. We had, like I said, we'd been there for 12 years. So, busy restaurants get worn down a little bit, surfaces get beat up, floors need to be refinished, all that kind of stuff. And it's hard to do it when you're fully open, because if you're busy, you're making money, and why would you stop doing that to, do something else? So it's just a hard thing to do. But the pandemic kind of, trying to make something good out of it, I guess, it gave me an opportunity to do a aggressive remodel of the building that would never be possible while it was open, taking down ceilings and making significant changes, putting up, all new walls and kind of stuff that you just wouldn't do when it was open.
Right.
And so, I actually didn't start off at the beginning of thinking of the renovation of doing a Greek restaurant, although it's something I really always wanted to do. But then as like the renovation got more aggressive or ambitious, I should say, it didn't make sense to me to make that kind of investment of time, effort, and money, and keep the same concept. I thought, hey, this is the perfect opportunity to do something new, and we've done that with opening Sauce and 15 Essex, but the main restaurant was like always Andolini. So I guess, just like anything else in life, you want to do something new as well. But it's kind of a little bit of a nod of tip of the cap to my dad. He was a fiercely proud Greek. He was born there. He came here, and he was a fiercely proud American too. He came here 7 years old during World War II. But there was definitely a part of him that was always in Greece, and he instilled that pride in me. So this kind of is like a little bit of a living out that, so.
Right. A tribute.
Yeah.
Cool.
Could I jump in and just say a very quick true story that happened just right before we started this interview? Foti constantly sends me links to like different Greek restaurants, different Greek menus. Whatever catches his eye, he'll usually send it to me and ask me what I think of it. So he sent me a link to a Greek restaurant, and I literally about an hour ago, and I
Mhm.
opened it, and in my head I'm just like, yeah, this is just something he saw that caught his eye. So I'm looking through it, and I'm like, wow, Foti, this is a good one. This looks so good. And then I'm trying to find the location, and then I noticed um, the address, and I was like, wait, is this the guy we're going to interview right now? So the true story is that without even knowing, I looked at your website for your restaurant, and I was blown away. So I just wanted to throw that in there real quick.
Oh, cool. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to honor the Greek cuisine that we're cooking and serving to people. And we're also trying to not make it a carbon copy of the tip of a typical Greek American restaurant, I would say.
Yeah.
And the building itself isn't really suited to be like a Greek islands white fish restaurant as much as it is kind of a taverna feel in the building itself. So, I'm trying to, I guess, I think people always talk about authentic, and it's interesting what authentic really is. And I would be, straight up lying to myself and to everybody else if I was going to tell you that this is a restaurant that you'd find in Greece or an exact authentic restaurant. But what it really is it's authentic to me. I'm Greek American, and there's parts of it that we want to be an ambassador for Greek food and ingredients to our community, and that means that we need to respect Greece, but we also need to respect our community and put a restaurant together that can be a bridge to the Greek culture for people who live here who don't really understand it or have that experience in their life yet. So that's kind of what Daxi is trying to be. It's trying to serve our community and be a bridge to Greek culture and Greek food and flavors and ideas. And so it's authentic to me in that way,
Yeah,
if I
it's your
But I mean, Foti, back me up on this, or actually, I'm going to hand it over to you. But I'm going to say, I'm a Greek American. I've spent practically my whole upbringing and adult life going to Greece. I've been all over the country here. I've eaten at Greek restaurants far and wide. And I could see in your menu, I see exactly what you're talking about, but I also see like that as a Greek, I see such attraction to that Greek essence that you have there. I mean, Foti, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about you as the creator. It's your expression and interpretation of the cuisine. And what's more important that you mentioned is the base of ingredients, the Greek ingredients that can be applied to very flavorful dishes that are clean, but also have good balance. So I completely agree with you, Spiro, about the fact that you also have to keep in mind your audience or your guests that are going to be actually dining at your restaurant. There's always this debate about what's authentic, and you're right, because even in Greece, what's authentic? Cuisines are so diverse and different from village to village that there's no real one way to make things. So,
Yeah, what I would add to that is that cuisines are everything you said, and they're also very personal.
yes, your signature.
Where people's moms cook things different ways, and they're personal for that reason. They're also personal because you consume it.
Right.
Where you eat it. So to be arrogant enough to tell people what they should want to eat and put in their body 100% is, that's not my style. So I think that, like I said, a bridge and an opportunity to experience a Greek restaurant and Greek dishes and culinary ideas that people haven't experienced before is like a great place to be,
Right.
and it's, I hope that we set out every day to do a good job of doing that. And I hope that, we fulfill that mission as Daxi kind of matures and becomes a fixture here.
Well, you've got me sold, so you're definitely going to be coming to visit very shortly.
And I'll say
And
this about Forty. Like, I know Forty for 20 plus years. We've eaten together countless times. He is not an easy person. Like, I've seen him pass up food a million times, even when hungry. So he's like, he's a picky eater. If Forty eats and enjoys something, I am behind it 100% because I know if it passes his test, it's good.
cheers to
Yeah.
that. But but Spiro, so for our audience, the restaurant is Daxi Cafenio Estiatorio Bar. And is there maybe some things you can mention to our audience they can find on the menu? Maybe we could talk a little bit about your beverage program, just to give some insight and a preview of what people can come to experience.
Yeah. So, you know, this is it's a easy, a hard question for me because I always, you know, we spent so much time working on the menu, and I fell in love with a lot of the dishes that are on there. But, you know, a couple highlights for me that I think, you know, are done a little bit differently than you might find elsewhere, kind of things. In the, you know, appetizers, there's a dish called shrimp saganaki. It's really a beautiful dish and interesting, like, combination of flavors that you know, it brings some creativity, I think, into a more traditional dish.
Right.
So the chef adds a little bit of chili in there, which may not be found in a super traditional version of the dish, but I think it really, like,
I can see that
awakens.
working.
And
Absolutely.
there's a simple part of it that is, like, almost addictive is, so he bakes some bread every day, and then cuts it into cubes, soaks it in olive oil, and then pan fries it, and that's what the shrimp saganaki's put on top of. And those, like,
Oh,
you could call them croutons, I guess. Those big chunks of bread are, like, ridiculously delicious. And so we I would definitely encourage people to get that. I don't think it's the first thing that people get. I think, you know, the octopus and the Greek meatballs, the keftedes, and there's a series of other things on there that people try first. So I just try to get people to, like, get out of their comfort zone a little bit and try something else. So I would say that a dish that I like on the entree side that I'm personally addicted to right now is a braised lamb with farro that's tossed with some, like, wild greens and tomato, and so he braises the leg of lamb and then takes it off the bone and breaks it into pieces, puts it into a hotel pan, and then puts another hotel pan on top of it, weighs it, chills it, and then cuts it into a perfect rectangle.
yeah.
So the presentation, the actual food is very rustic, but the presentation is, like, much more elevated than that. And you know, I'm just dying to eat it every time I'm there. I'm looking at the menu and I'm like, I think I'm gonna get the lamb again. I can't
Well,
stop getting it.
I'm taking notes of what I'm going to order.
Yeah.
So good.
So I think, you know, I think that's an interesting, those are two dishes that I think, you know, I'd be very confident that just about anyone would get and be very happy with it, regardless of their personal taste. And then, you know, like I said, it's very personal. So I think, you know, reading the menu and deciding how to navigate it is something that we always encourage people to do. As far as the beverage program goes, we have a pretty concentrated Greek wine list right now, which I definitely want to continue to add to as time goes on. I'm getting a flavor for what the community is into and trying to add more in that direction as we go forward. And then cocktail wise, you know, we have in the building, we have, you know, it might sound a little boastful, but we have some of the best bartenders in the area. They've been with me for 7, 8, 9 years, and they're really into what they do. When I opened up the cocktail bar 15 Essex, I wrote the first menu, went through how to make all the drinks with them, did all that kind of stuff. And then over time, it's gotten to the point now where I haven't made up a drink for 15 Essex in forever. They're like consistently pushing the envelope and getting better. So I definitely asked them to get involved in some of the Greek cocktails and using, Greek ingredients, Greek ideas,
Sure.
etc., so that it fits with the cuisine and the concept and all that stuff. But I'm pleasantly surprised. Like, so drinks are also personal, and people want to drink. People want to have what they have everywhere, wherever they go, kind of thing, right? I drink this pretty much. So getting people to venture out and try something new, it doesn't always work. But we're seeing a really good uptake on a handful of our Greek cocktails. So we have one that has like mountain tea and vodka and blood orange juice in it, and that one has, I don't think it's that challenging, but it's also nice to see people ordering it instead of just getting vodka soda if that's what they drink. So that one's doing really well. We have our Greek version of a espresso martini, where we basically make a traditional frappe and then put in the espresso liqueur and vodka to it, basically, and then shaking it, so then the foam from the frappe is put on top of it. That one packs a punch. Like, both the coffee and the booze aspect of it together is like, it's pretty intense. And even people who drink espresso martinis are saying like, wow, like that really, it's strong, And so I think it's interesting to see like if people go back and get another one, but we're seeing it sell quite a bit. So I think it's kind of catching on. So
I mean,
it's a little bit about what we're doing.
All of that sounds amazing. Forte, what do you think?
I mean, Ari, I can't wait for you to come up.
Before we move on, did you guys ever have the local ouzo from Short Path?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have that on our shelf, and that's selling well too. I never knew if somebody was going to want to try a local ouzo. It's like,
right. It's amazing to see someone actually who's not Greek making really well-made ouzo, which is Short Path.
I mean, I didn't know. I have to, maybe I should plead ignorance. I didn't know it existed before we were working on like beverage program for Daxi, and the salesperson brought it by, and I was like, obviously we're buying it.
That's awesome. So, do you, Spiro, now that you mentioned ouzo, do you also feature some of the other spirits like tsipuro, raki, Mastika?
Yeah, so tsipuro and Mastika, yes. We haven't really unlocked the sales part of that yet. We're stocking it. It's not really moving so much. We're trying a couple of new cocktails this week and gonna mess around with it a little bit. But yeah, we have it. Awesome. And it'll be interesting to see like how we were talking about earlier, like bridging the gap from American palate to Greek palate, and trying to make it work, basically. So
and one of my last questions, Spiro, how about Greek desserts?
Yeah, so they're a little bit creative, I think. So
that's
good. The most popular one is a baklava cheesecake. Ooh. So basically they make like a really thin baklava, a couple layers, and then they put the cheesecake on top of it, and then phyllo on top of the cheesecake. So when you cut through it, you'll have like phyllo, a pretty thick piece of cheesecake, and then like the crust of the cheesecake is basically like 2 layers of baklava.
Brilliant.
That's really good.
Yeah. So that one is one that I would point to. I guess,
Mhm.
you know,
Sold.
and yeah.
Oh, it all sounds so good. Like I said, without knowing what I was looking at, I was like, wow, this looks really good. And then I realized it was your restaurant, Daxi. What's the web address so people could find
DaxiGreek.com, DAXI Greek.com.
Daxi Greek?
And any meaning behind the word Daxi?
No, I mean, it's Daxi.
I was gonna say,
you know,
is it Daxi something off of that?
All is
Yeah.
well.
yeah, all's well.
I like it.
You know,
Perfect.
I might be taking a liberty, but it's almost like all's well, no worries. Like, you know,
Oh, I love that.
For the
That's
guest, yes.
yeah, yeah. So I think, you know, I think I wanted something that was short, easily
Easy.
pronounceable by,
Mhm.
you know, Americans, I guess.
Yeah.
Good choice.
And you know,
Excellent.
it came, I think, I want to give credit where credit's due here, because I was talking about this with my family and the ideas of names, and you know, I thought of Elavo, like I almost called it that, and my sister kind of was like, I don't know, and she came up with Doxy as one of the suggestions, so I want to give her credit where credit's due. But yeah, it works for me.
Yeah, I like it. I like the whole sound of it. And like you said, you have to always have that kind of marketing mind as well. You know, is it easily pronounceable? Are people going to be turned off by it? You know, it's
Yeah.
all that, and it's a nice, simple, short, pronounceable, but yet foreign sounding name, which I think works
And-
on all levels.
And for those that are listening now, Spiro, I'm sure we're gonna have this all information in the notes of the podcast. But as far as you're open, how many days of the week?
So for the rest of the summer, we're going to stick with our opening schedule, which is Wednesday through Sunday for dinner, and we're doing a we're doing a Sunday brunch on Sunday. So we open at 11 a.m. on Sunday. We open at 5 p.m. every other day.
Okay, awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent.
In the fall, we'll add Tuesday night and just be closed on Monday, and we'll do a Saturday brunch as well. So we'll do Saturday, Sunday brunch, and then dinner Tuesday through Sunday night.
That sounds so good.
Excellent. There you have it, Ari. I mean,
Well, now
many reasons to actually shoot over to Andover because of.
I was gonna say, more of a reason for me to get back up to Boston, and B, once I'm there, shoot up to your area so we could check this amazing, fantastic place out. I want to say very quickly to everybody watching and listening, we want to thank Spiro for his time. You know, he's a busy guy. Thank you so much, Spiro, for taking the time to be with us. Foti, as always, thank you for hosting and finding these amazing guests for us. And anything you want to end off with?
I just want to thank Spiro for his time as well. This won't be the only time that we'll have you on our podcast. We'd love to bring you back on at some later point with, I'm sure you've always got something going on with exciting news. But Spiro, thank you so much. We're definitely going to come up and visit you and try the restaurant out. Maybe we might be there too many times, so forgive us if we take up too many seats at the bar.
Impossible. Well, thanks you guys for thanks for having me on, and thanks for what you do for the Greek community, and for giving people like me an opportunity to have a chance to get the word out about something we're doing. So we really appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
Our pleasure, always. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for watching and listening. All of Spiro's information, restaurant, everything else will be in the notes. Thank you for watching and listening again, and check out his restaurant. It is, if anything, just look at the website, look at the pictures, look at those recipes, look at those ingredients, and you'll be sold like we are. Thanks, everybody out there. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.